The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. This is Ken Shaw from ServerSave Online Backup. We're getting ready to start the webinar now. Apologize for the slight delay. Can we just get an audio-visual check? Can everybody see the screen and hear us talking? There's a questions tool in the GoToWebinar software you can use to let us know that everything's working okay. Great, seems like it's working. Well, welcome everybody. I'm joined here by Shaylin Herrick, Director of Business Marketing here at SOS, and Jeff McCauley, our Vice President of Sales. Welcome to our Thursday webinar for partners. I guess good afternoon if you're joining us from the East Coast. Today's webinar is going to cover a few different topics. We'll talk about the company, the partner program here at SOS, and then John Wagner, our Chief Sales Engineer, will be coming in to do a technology demo. Can I get a brief sense of who's on the line today? So can you let me know if you're an existing partner or if you're a prospective partner thinking about joining the SOS partner program? Again, use that question tool. So we're going to be raffling off a Kindle at today's webinar, but you can only go in the running for it if you actually do ask questions throughout the webinar. So do find that tool and figure out a way to use it, because one lucky person is going to get themselves a Kindle. Great. All right, we've got some feedback rolling in. Looks like we've got mainly prospects, which is great. Okay, cool. Now that I've got you all typing, I'd also like to know what is it that you guys would like to get out of today's webinar. Do you want to know more about the product? Do you want to know more about the partner program? Are you interested in pricing? What are the key topics you'd like to have addressed? We've got a lot of material we can cover, but we like to try and make these things as interactive as possible. I can see Mike Hendrickson's used the raise hand feature of the tool to I guess Mike might have a question. Mike, see if you can find the questions tool and ask that question. All right, so let's dive in while you're all typing up what it is that you'd like to hear about most. I'm going to skip through this slide. Brief background on SOS. We've been around a long time. We started in 2001 back in Australia. That's where my accent's from, if some of you are wondering. We're now headquartered in the United States. We're a US-based company here in California, about 130 people around the world, nearly 1,000 partners in our program, mainly ISPs, break-fix, tech shops, managed service providers. So our real purpose in life is to get online backup into the hands of consumers and small businesses through people like yourself. So we work almost exclusively through the channel. We do some web sales in our consumer business, but we mainly do that to feed intelligence to our partners. Partners comprise nearly 80% of the company's revenue, so very much a channel-focused company. The other thing you got to know about us is we are massive backup nerds. I'm an engineer. Most of the leadership of the company are engineering focused, so our goal in life is really to build the best online backup or cloud backup product in the world. We think we've done that. We think we continue to do that. We've got some other people who agree with this, like PC Magazine, who've given us their Editor's Choice Award 4 times in a row, the New York Times, who wrote us up last year. So generally speaking, that's sort of the snapshot of SOS. We're focused on success for partners like yourself, giving you either white-labeled or co-branded online backup solutions for your customers. And if you've got any questions about the company, please do start asking. We've got one question here from Michael. Do you offer services to military contracts? I think you might mean military contractors. So Michael, we've got some government contracts, and one of the things you're going to hear about in the webinar is our sort of deep focus on security and end-to-end encryption. So we use AES 256-bit encryption, for example, which is the NIST-rated or NIST-certified encryption protocol they use for top-secret government data. So this very much is a product that can be sold to small business, to small enterprise, to small government offices. Our specialty is really focusing on endpoint environments with between 5 and 1,000 seats. So that covers a broad swath of sort of America. We don't really focus on large enterprise, so we don't really look at, we're not really focusing on deployments above 1,000 seats at the moment. Doesn't mean our technology can't go there. It's just not where most of our partners are. Most of our partners are either selling to consumers and what we call micro businesses, and then sort of in that and for us, micro businesses goes up to about 50 employees. It's sort of a shifting definition. But if your customers have between one endpoint all the way through to 1,000 endpoints, you'll probably find that we're the most powerful online backup solution on the market for you and the best priced for you. So a big highlight of today's webinar is how you can earn, starting at 50% margin, going all the way up to 70-75% margin on selling this backup service to your customers. Kerwin asked if we're HIPAA compliant. Absolutely, Kerwin. And that's all the questions we've got on the line so far. All right, so next slide. Just from an industry standpoint, we get a lot of queries about sort of the size of the industry. And there's a great white paper from IDC published last year about the online backup industry, which you can get from any one of our partner specialists. Just ask for the white paper, the IDC white paper. But it's got some interesting data in it. Overall online backup industry this year is sized at $1.3 billion in total spend. Sorry, that was last year. This year it's $2.2 billion in total. But what's more interesting than that is the sort of trends in the shift from consumer spend to business spend. So the overall industry is growing at 30% a year. We and our partners are seeing much higher rates of growth than that. And the reason is because our product is sort of so nicely positioned for small business backup. We're seeing a big shift from spend from early adopters and largely consumers into businesses. IDC's got some additional statistics in that report which are fascinating. For example, whilst, oh, hang on, one slide too many. Okay, so it's actually not on this slide, but the stats that IDC's got are that while 69% of small business America states that they intend to deploy cloud backup in the next 24 months, only 16% are using it today. So there's this big, massive shift going on from on-premises backup, which is usually focused on tape or disk, to cloud-driven backup. And they've got even more fascinating stats when you look at the payloads that these companies actually want to use online backup to handle. So the number of people using Exchange backup to the cloud today sits at like 6 or 7%. But again, 65% want to use cloud backup to back up and protect their on-prem Exchange servers. Same thing could be said of other sort of more complex data environments like SQL Server, Oracle. So although the overall online backup industry is growing at 30%, and there's nothing wrong with that, there are micro slivers within the industry growing at 100% or 200% a year right now. And so our sort of what we're doing is enrolling partners in to really ride that growth curve. There's a real land grab going on in the online backup industry today. And putting it sort of in a very blunt manner, if you don't sell your customers online backup, somebody else is going to, I promise you that. So 2 years from now, all of your customers will be using cloud backup, and the choice is really whether or not they're getting it from you and you're making 50% margin on it, or whether they're getting it from someone else. The choice is not whether they use it at all, it's simply who they get it from. So, Shannon, go ahead.
Yeah, there's another really fascinating statistics from IDC that indicates the growth curve that we're in, and that's that presently 1.3% of IT spend budgets are allocated to cloud services. Within 2 years, so we're obviously beginning of that 2 years, it's a prime time to take advantage of this opportunity, that will grow from 1.3% to 3%. I know they sound like small numbers, but that's a doubling of budget, and that's something that you are in a prime spot to take advantage of.
So while we're talking sort of industry stats and just bringing it home to businesses, are you selling to maybe local government, are you selling to consumers? So who is your customer base that you're focused on in your business today? Mike says SMB. Ed says business. Brad says SMB. Michael's got some local business and local government offices. Another Mike's got SMB. Good. Okay. So yeah, very targeted audience. We do have consumer solutions, so for those of you who are selling to home users, I don't want to scare you off, but the biggest opportunity in this market is absolutely the small business market. And so it seems like that's what most of the audience members are focused on, so that's perfect. So what's driving the change? What we call the price functionality inflection point, which is a fancy way of saying that online backup is now just as capable as more traditional backup solutions like Backup Exec with a disk array or Backup Exec with a tape array, but it's a lot cheaper. So if you cost out the cost of, say, a full Backup Exec deployment using IBM or HP gear, doing the same deployment using our technology comes in at roughly 30% of the price of that, or 20% depending on what sort of equipment you're using. So it's a radically cheaper solution for the very end user, but it's also superior from a functionality and technical point. So a better backup at a better price. Along the way, you as the partner or you as the reseller gets to make 50% margin, which is unheard of in backup. So for those of you who are selling backup today, I'd love to know what sort of margin you're making on backup equipment. Most of our partners, before they joined us, were making 5-6 percentage points when they're selling backup solutions to their customers. They generally didn't view backup as a particularly profitable part of the business. Whereas with cloud backup, the margins are really large. It's recurring revenue, so it's a very nice ongoing revenue stream and highly profitable. And so what's the functionality that I'm talking about? We're talking about the ability to obviously back up endpoints, so workstations, laptops, mobile devices to the cloud. But we're also talking about hardcore server backup, so true business continuity and disaster recovery, bare metal backup locally as well as bare metal backup to the cloud, backing up Exchange, backing up SQL Server. Then having management systems to wrap all that together. So with one central pane of glass, you can manage all of your endpoints, whether those endpoints are in your environment or sitting in all of your customers' environments. Security, end-to-end AES 256-bit private key encryption, so going through those questions about HIPAA compliance and government support. And the end goal of all this is really just to collapse the recovery time objective and the recovery point objective to what we're targeting as a company is 30 minutes. And that becomes realistic with sort of our technology stack, and we're going to see more detail of that later. Michael says, I do a lot of server repair and installs. It would be nice to add this to our services. Absolutely, Michael, because it's simpler technology, right? So backup is usually a real pain. It's far less expensive for your customers, so your customers are thrilled with you, and you're making 50% margin on it, which is pretty exciting.
Absolutely, and Michael, as you know, the technology is always ebbing forward. So when your customer doesn't have to invest in a high dollar piece of technology that is just going to be antiquated in 2 years, rather you can utilize our software suite that it's constantly being updated and a much better price point for you and for your customer. It's really a win across the board.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the partner program. So we call it this business in a box. When you're joining the SOS Partner Program, you're getting a bunch of things. You're getting space on our managed cloud, which is driven by 8 customer data centers around the world. You're getting all of our software. That's everything from sort of PC software to server software, mobile software. We can white label all of that for you, or we can co-brand it so you can leverage some of the power and the awards of the SOS brand. You're getting an integrated billing solution. You get, trainings that are going on every day. So we're doing webinar-style classroom training every day. You get US-based partner support. You get an entire sales and marketing library of materials to help you get jump-started, everything from email templates to a 40-page backup and disaster recovery proposal template that you can use to pitch your customers. So we try to really give you every element you need to succeed in the backup business, not just the technology piece. And where we see sort of the difference between success and failure in this market is obviously you've got to have world-class infrastructure. Obviously you've got to have the best software. But you also need that support and that sales and marketing and training as well. So when you compare the SOS Partner Program to sort of the other competitors in the space, most of them look pretty anemic in terms of what they're actually delivering to you. So on this slide, we're looking here at Intronis, Doyan's, C Backup. The first thing I'd highlight is price line. So what you'll see here is the costs from these other companies to you, the reseller, are 3, 4, 5 times as much as the SOS cost. In some cases, 20 times as much. Another really important thing to highlight here is that there's no hardware required when you're using SOS. You just get access to our cloud, and that takes a lot of complexity out of having to build your own cloud, which frankly is something that is very difficult to do in a cost-effective way when you're a small provider in this space. I think we've talked about some of this stuff, rebranded sales materials, website templates, online sales capability, so we integrate with your e-commerce solutions, or you can just take our e-commerce solutions out of the box. Hosted billing, no hardware required. Data centers around the world, so I'm not sure where partners are from, and actually that's another good pop quiz. where are you all based? Typically our partners are UK, Australia, Canada, and America, but I'd love to know what this morning's audience, where you're based. We've got somebody from Maine, US, Ireland, okay. USA, Washington. Well, Ed's from Ireland. He may not be happy to know that our European data center is in London, but we do have a data center close to you, Ed. Bristol, Virginia, Washington, Canada. Okay, we've got a data center in Toronto, Missouri. So we've got these data centers around the world, what we call sovereign data centers. So you can actually specify where you want your data to be geolocated. So for European partners, that's typically in the UK. We're also looking at setting up a data center in Amsterdam. And then we've got data centers in Toronto, the US, mainly in Texas in the US, and then also in Australia. All right, so let's have a look briefly at sort of the highlights of the technology stack, but this is really going to come to life when John demos it for us in a few minutes. From a product design perspective, this slide sort of embodies our philosophy. We've always said we wanted to back up every bit of data no matter where it's sitting. When we set out to do that, it wasn't as important as it's become today. Today's sort of business environment is a very heterogeneous data environment. You've got people who've really embraced this whole new bring your own device movement. So we've got iPads in the workplace, we've got iPhones, we've still got Blackberries, we've got Androids, we've got Android tablets, we've got Mac laptops, and obviously we've still got Windows-based machines. So our cross-platform approach to backing up all your data, no matter where it sits, is becoming more and more important. And this clock diagram, we call it, sort of shows this for you. So on the left, you've got solutions that are, the blue indicates that they're targeted at consumers. The green indicates that the solutions are targeted at businesses. You'll notice that in the desk life node and mobile life node, we're targeting both, because mobile backup's important to consumers, but it's really important to businesses too. Desktop and endpoint backup is extremely important to businesses, but that's primarily where consumers have got their data sitting. This cloud-like backup doesn't really apply to our partners yet, but it is a promise of things to come. Today we're backing up Facebook data, but what we will be doing in the future is backing up true cloud-based business data. So imagine the ability to back up your Salesforce data to the SOS cloud, to back up your NetSuite data to the SOS cloud, and that's coming. Mobile Life is backing up iPhones and Androids, both cell phones and tablets. We're the only major online backup company that does that. Don't be fooled by companies saying they have mobile apps. Those mobile apps are just for accessing data and reading it. We're the only ones actually backing that data up. And then when we get to sort of 5 o'clock on the clock, we get into more data-heavy, business-focused environments. So backing up file data, whether that's file data sitting on endpoints and workstations, but most likely file data sitting on file servers, SBS servers. These file servers might actually be running a workstation type environment sitting in the corner, but acting as a file server for a small business office. And this is the bread and butter of the online backup business, backing up this data. Going around at 3 o'clock, we're also doing structured application data, so backing up SQL databases, backing up Exchange. As we all know, this is really where the value is. So this data here at 3 o'clock is what your customers value the most. It's the data that will put them out of business if they lose. It's also the area where you can make the most money effectively. So the ASPs, the average sales price for backup contracts covering structured application data, can be 2 or 3x the average sales price of contracts targeted at simple file data. And the margin on those sales and those contracts for you is very, very high. So this is very much a hot area of the online backup market. We'll get to see John backing up some Exchange data later on. Question here from Michael. Do your clients pay for their services on a monthly or yearly basis? Michael, you can do either. So we have both monthly and annual options. You get a discount if you go annually, but if you're looking for flexibility, then monthly is a great way to go. Dan asks, is there any reason I could not back up a MySQL database? So Dan, we don't have any native technology to talk to MySQL, but the way most people would do it is just configure MySQL to do its own backup to a local environment or a Samba or NFS or CIF share on the network, and then back that up with the cloud. So the only wrinkle there is there's that one extra step of setting up the MySQL backup first. Kerwin asks, when will you support Linux clients? Kerwin, so no immediate plans to support Linux. Most of our partners tell us that Linux isn't a big sort of revenue center for them. And you can back up Linux servers with that technology. You would just back those servers up to, again, a Samba or NFS or CIFS share on the network and then protect that data with the SOS technology stack. So in terms of us building actual native Linux clients, because most of our partners are happy with that sort of two-step approach, it's not something we're pursuing immediately. We'd rather continue to deliver more powerful tools to you, our partners, keep driving down our supply costs to you, rather than sort of spend that time on the native Linux clients. And generally speaking, we sort of follow the voice of our partner community, who are pretty vocal about where they want us to spend our time. All right, so forging ahead. The key elements of the ServerSave product, and the sort of headline product here that we're talking about is SOS ServerSave, is Exchange Backup and Granular Recovery, bare metal image creator for bare metal backups, the Online Backup and Recovery Manager, which is the core cloud backup engine. Workstation backup, which we're phasing out. It was a different, basically you had two endpoints, one for servers and one for workstations. We're phasing this guy out. The web integration package, which is the module through which you manage your backup business. We're going to see that live with John. And then mobile backup, so apps for Android, iPhone, and then a mobile portal that's available on BlackBerry. It's not a native client. All right, so this just sort of gives you an idea of the functionality of both our file folder backup stack and then our ServerSave backup stack as compared to some of the more well-known brands in the space, being Carbonite and Mozy. So it's starting at the top and walking down. Military-grade security, so full private key encryption to government standards, and you can let your customers know that, you know, if they select our ultra-safe option, there's no way that even you can see the data or we can see the data. 8 megabits sustained throughput. You'll find that SOS is the fastest cloud backup product out there in the market. Most of our competitors throttle backup speeds down to 500, 600 kilobits. We don't throttle. We've got partners who are backing up at 20 or 30 megabits, but 8 megabits is sort of the most common sustained throughput on, you know, cable type modem technology. And then just a lot of other features that you'd expect. So backup to local drives, whether that's fixed or network drives, web access to files, get your files from anywhere with the browser, mobile device access, so if you've got an iPhone or Android, you can get any of your data. SOS Forever Save, this is unique to us. We keep an unlimited number of file versions, and we archive for free. So imagine you've got a file that's changing every single day for a year. First thing is, with us, you'll have 365 versions of that file. With all of our competitors, you'll generally have 14 or 30 versions of that file. So if you need to roll something back 6 months with dynamic content that's changing a lot, you simply can't do it with most platforms. That's the first thing. The second thing is the archiving component. With most online backup platforms, if you disconnect the device you're backing up from the network, then after 30 days, they'll delete that data from the cloud automatically. And they do that because they say that hanging on to it would then become an archive, not a true backup, which, whilst perhaps is technically true if you're being a very pedantic backup engineer, from a customer's standpoint, it's sheer lunacy because, for example, in the case of accidental file deletion, the customer doesn't realize that they've deleted that file from their local environment, and they want to go to the cloud backup to recover it. But if they don't make that realization within 30 days using most other platforms, the file's been removed from the cloud. SOS doesn't do that. We just automatically move the files across to archival space so you can get them anytime you'd like. When I do my product demo, I usually I've got an account where I can roll it back to 2008. Again, we're the only company that can do that. So you can really roll back your entire data environment to any point in time versus, say, 30 days. Network and NAS drive backup, you'd think that would be industry standard, but it's not. Continuous data protection, unlimited versions we covered, and then getting down into the more business-focused ServerSave features. So bare metal backup and recovery, transactionally consistent bare metal backups. Does everybody know what I mean when I say transactionally consistent bare metal backups? That's sometimes a point of confusion, but it's a really, really important point. For example, Carbonite's got a bare metal technology, but you would never, ever point that at a database because it could very potentially corrupt that database because it's not transactionally consistent, it's crash consistent. So let me know if you guys know the difference between transactional consistent bare metal and crash consistent bare metal. I'll power on, but if people want me to talk about that, I can talk more about it. But very important in business backup environments. system state and application data backup. We're going to see this in the demo, but backing up Exchange server, backing up SQL on SharePoint. And then Pulse, our central management and reporting technology, which you'll see, but it allows you to manage all of these different endpoints and complex endpoint environments through one consistent management portal.
Could you give them just a bit on the transactionally consistent? I think a couple had a question.
Sure. So in databases, you've got this concept of a transaction. So to pick on an audience member, Brad Bielowski, pick a hard one. If Brad's transferring $1 million to me, then that translates into two different database activities. We're going to delete $1 million out of his account, and we're going to add $1 million into my account. And that's totally cool if it all happens together, but it causes massive problems if for some reason it were to be interrupted, because $1 million will disappear out of Brad's account and never even get to my account. Imagine if you pulled the power cable out of a machine in that millisecond between those two transactional entries. Then you'd have what we call a crash consistent state. You'd have a tear in the transaction. Now, that really can't happen. Databases protect themselves against this, right? So a database will roll it back. But with non-transactionally aware bare metal backup, it will literally take a snapshot irrespective of the state of transactions that are being run. So whereas when you pull a power cable out of a server, you really cannot corrupt the database. With transactionally unaware bare metal backup, you can't. So if you take, say, consumer-grade bare metal technology and throw it at a SQL database or an Exchange